All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And if you'd like to check out the broadcast schedule that we have available for you, 7/24, 365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit xzbn.night. And as we always do each and every night, we are here on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and X Zone Broadcast Network. Wow, here we are, the end of October already. Where did the month go? Just seems like, let's see, this month we've had more COVID problems. We've had two presidential debates? And then next week, everybody in the United States goes to the polls to cast their vote to see who is going to lead the United States of America in the next 4 years. That should be a very interesting night. And in fact, that night we are not doing our show because the network times have been purchased by the different networks that we're going to be repeating into various parts of the world through our satellite network. Our guest this hour, Exonation, is Amelía Aeon Karris, and she is the author of Synchronicity, Unlock Your Divine Destiny, and is the founder of Know the Self, a mastery school for modern-day living, where she activates men and women to live with their purpose. Joining me now is Amelía, and first of all, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me. I am originally from the Silicon Valley. I was born and raised in that area, the San Francisco Bay Area of California. And growing up, I had a number of strange phenomena, paranormal phenomena, spiritual experiences that the church in which I was raised, the born-again Christian sort of faith, didn't really have answers to my questions. So as a young adult, I set out and traveled the world and became this avid truth seeker and wanted to really understand this kind of force that was guiding me somewhere. And so it's taken me on a path all over the world, working with different teachers and starting and creating different businesses to really find the truth for myself. And so now I culminated my life's work and experience of working with, high tech and then got into spiritual or eco communities with living in harmony with the earth. And so I've sort of put all that together and started to share with people how they can ground such far out experiences, because I found that it's happening to a lot of people. They're having questions or experiences that, maybe their traditional faith or how they were raised doesn't really answer. So I help people make sense of paranormal phenomena or the spiritual experiences that they're having, and then figure out where it's leading them and how to ground it into their work in the world to help them really master what they came here to do.
Why do you think there's such an interest in today's society about the paranormal?
Well, I think so many people are now having face-to-face experience with it that it can no longer be sort of swept away. I think it's easy to say people are crazy, or, if they see a ghost or something like that, and because of the belief systems that we were raised in. And so now I think the veils are quite thin. There's so many unexplained mysteries, and the internet is helping people sort of connect the dots or discover maybe different belief systems or ancient texts that maybe they couldn't have access to prior to the internet. And so there's a lot of like cross-pollination and people sharing their experiences, and it's helping to stitch together the great mystery. And yeah, I think everybody's like seeking truth, like wanting to know where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we headed?
But what makes people think that in today's society they're going to find the answers that scholars and mystics have not been able to discover over thousands of years?
Well, I think there's a lot of answers that have been discovered that have been hidden from the lay person, or for different reasons. And I think some of those answers are being revealed in these like ancient texts that were either undiscovered or hidden for various reasons. I think religious sects kind of decided, what the narrative was going to be about our spiritual inheritance. And I think these days, people are really needing to understand like what they're made of. And I think now with science and spirituality cross-pollinating, like they're no longer siloed information. Everybody's sharing information, and these boundaries, or these what used to be kind of sectors of society are talking to one another. Different cultures are mixing. People are traveling around the world, working with different oral traditions, places where there was rich history. So I think that it's just we're gathering and collecting data and being able to sift data differently than we ever have been until now.
You said that science working with, and I was wondering if you could give us some examples of science working with people who are seeking the answers, and if they're seeking the answers, what answers have science actually found that could answer some of these very mystical questions?
I think quantum physicists have explained, like the God particle and things like that. They're tapping into dark matter, and they're seeing that, they're able to smash atoms together, and paranormal things are happening. So I think that through the physics and just, our space travel programs, things like that, it's opening doorways and sort of expanding people's mind to what they thought was possible before. Like there's some scientific explanation to things. And also in the Vedic sciences, that are in the ancient Hindu texts, you can read a lot about things that, in the Western world in science, we didn't, take into account.
You said something about quantum physics. They explain hypothetical hypothesis, but they have not, to this very date, proven anything. So how can we use quantum physics as a justification?
I don't know if there's any sort of proof or justification. I think we're just getting closer. I think science has us asking a lot of questions and then, searching for answers. And I like to apply that to, our spirituality or our human potential. I think there's so much that we don't know about ourselves. Just take the human body, for example. Like, we don't know exactly how we breathe. We're not consciously aware of our breath. It just kind of happens, right?
Oh, I beg to differ with you there, because members of my family are in the medical profession, and they know how people breathe and why we breathe. They know the functioning
No,
of
no,
breathing.
they
We
know
also,
how, yeah, but I'm saying like the normal person, we don't go around and have to tell ourselves to breathe. You know, we fall asleep and we go throughout
Uh-huh.
our day without
Okay.
necessarily like trying to breathe, right? It's
All right.
like not everybody knows how electricity works. We just turn the light switch on and expect it
But do
to
we
turn
need?
on. Like, of course, there's people who understand the mechanics of it, but it's just like there's so much in the unknown universe that until we really tap into it and work with it and study it, are we able to really, discover things. So I think there's a whole area of the paranormal that's now, coming more to mainstream. It's no longer just, siloed out into, religious text or, the crazies on the fringe. There's this whole mainstream attempt to make sense of things like, poltergeist in people's house, or feelings of different energies, or just basic synchronicity happening in their life, and dreams, lucid dreaming, astral travel. All these things are coming to the mainstream media now, and I think it's really fascinating because so many people are having experiences and asking the questions that maybe 10 years ago they weren't really asking.
But how
I
much?
think people are seeking answers, like really seeking the truth.
I understand people are asking these questions, but I've been doing the show now for over 30 years, and I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any changes in the past 30 years. Everything is the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Nobody.
I find that more people are like awake. What I'm noticing is that more and more people are, maybe they're unafraid of talking about it.
Oh, I
but it seems
understand.
that
There's more of a public awareness. I'll agree
That's
with you.
right,
I will
yeah.
agree with you there, but still, no proof.
Public awareness and interest.
Well, yeah, this happens throughout
Yeah.
the ages, but there have
Maybe
been.
it's just a fad.
You know what? I sometimes I think it is, and other times I think that there's more to it. However, with all the technological advances that have happened over the past 30 years, I would think that there would have been significant research done and findings that would prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that certain claims of the paranormal are real. And yet, nothing. More
Yeah,
interesting.
and what I've come to find out is that there's people who seek for the proof outside themselves, but I think where I work is for people who've had an experience and they don't know what happened to them, and they're confused. For example, when I saw my first ghost, I was quite young, and it's freaky. It's a very unsettling experience, and you think that you're making it up, and then when you find out that it's real, for example, I was in my, how old was I? I think I was in my late 20s, and I was living in Japan at the time in the countryside, and I was walking to a friend's house late at night with no flashlight through a rice paddy field and a little hill to climb up to my friend's little cabin in the woods. And on my way, I saw this grass area near a tennis court thing, it's kind of like a retreat center. And I said, well, that's interesting. I feel something there. And then I saw this like apparition, like a see-through child. It
All
was
right.
like a 5-year-old boy.
Okay, stand by, dear. We've got to take our first break. X-Zone Nation.
Oh, sure.
We'll be back on the other side with our guest this hour as we continue speaking about the strange, the weird, the paranormal, and things that go bump in the night here in the X-Zone. And if you'd like to find out more about Amelía, visit her website, knowtheself.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Just between you and me, baby, I know how love will be. Just between you and me, always I know how love will be. Everybody likes a celebration, happy music and conversation. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have the blues. In the corner there's a couple dancing. From the kitchen I can hear them laughing. Oh, I wish I was celebrating too. I know this night won't last forever.
And welcome back, everyone. Amelía Aeon Karris is our special guest this hour. Her website is knowtheself.com. I'm sorry I had to cut you off there. We had to go to the commercial break. But tell us more about the first experience you had. You were in Japan at the time, and you were walking and you saw something. A child, was it? The translucent figure of a child?
Yeah, it was strange because it was a blonde kid, like an American boy, blonde, blue-eyed boy. Well, I couldn't really make out the eye color, but I could see the towhead blonde, about 5-year-old kid just standing at the edge of the grass staring at me. And it was a dark moon night, so there wasn't a lot of light, but he was a bit iridescent, and I just got a spook. So I ran into my friend's house, which is, I don't know, about 500 yards away, and I was out of breath, and I said, whoa, I just saw the strangest thing. I saw this like little blonde 5-year-old kid on the grass, and he was cooking, and he dropped the spoon he was stirring whatever, soup or something with, and he just dropped it on the floor and looked at me like he had seen the ghost. And he said, what did you say? And I said, I saw a 5-year-old blonde boy in the corner down there by the tennis courts. And he said, oh my God, do you know the story? And I said, what story? And apparently an American family had lived there at the house near there a number of years prior, and their son had drowned in a pond that was there. But after this tragedy, they filled the pond with soil, and now it's a grassy area. And that just gave me the chills. And I said, whoa, how come I saw him? He looked like, he was trying to get me to help him. And then a few weeks later, I was talking with a guy, I was on a date actually, with a Japanese guy who didn't speak so much English. And suddenly I said, did your mom die when you were young? And he looked at me strange and said, yes. And I said, were you 12 years old? And he said, yes. And I said, was she 33? And he said, yes. And I was like, wow, okay, she's talking to me, and she wants me to tell you something. And it was the strangest experience, but this guy knew exactly what to do, because he said, oh, you're a shaman, my grandma's a shaman, and I want to bring you to my grandmother. So he understood my gift. I didn't. I thought I was making it all up, but it was fascinating for me. And so that made me pay attention to things. Now, prior to that, I had no belief in ghosts. I had a few paranormal experiences that kind of freaked me out, but I hadn't seen or spoken to them like that. And so that put me on a whole other trajectory that continued for many years after.
So would you consider yourself a psychic, a medium?
Yes, I've had a lot of my gifts open. I don't work in that realm. I work in the realm in terms of I run a school and I help people awaken to their own gifts. But what I found is people used to come to me for, to speak to their deceased loved ones and things like that. And it was fascinating for both of us. It was like an exploration for me. Like, is this really your deceased loved one? And then I realized, I can help them. And I found that there was a reason for it. And so what I do now is really help people who have awakened to their gifts and are afraid of them, because it honestly feels more like a curse than a blessing. Like, everyone else thinks it's cool except the person it's happening to generally. For me, I wanted it to stop. I didn't particularly like it. And then I felt, well, if I have this gift, like, what's the point of using this? How can I use it to help people? And so that sort of put me on, the last few decades of helping people and assisting them with just grounding this kind of strange, bizarre, mysterious nature of who we are and how we got here and where we go after we die and things like that.
All right. So how do you help these people? For example, somebody comes to you and they have had a run-in with a spirit or a run-in with a ghost. How would you help them to better understand that what they see may in fact be part of reality and that they're not imagining it?
Yeah, well, it's important that people stay really grounded and rooted. So I don't work with anybody who's partaking in any kind of mind-altering substances or drinking alcohol and things like that, because even taking different pharmaceuticals that alter the mind balance, because that can be a false reality. So only people who are sober and clear and really ready to see what it is or why they're having these experiences. And then it's important that they learn how to stabilize. So when we awaken to like our multidimensional nature, it's very unsettling and it can throw your life out of balance. A lot of people start feeling like they're freaking out, or some people just go seek medical attention and start taking, they think that they're going crazy. So I just help them with a series of practices, like how they can, truth test and learn how to trust themselves and trust their guidance. And I define like 4 levels of self-mastery in my school. So there's like the student level, the apprentice level, the adept, and the mentor. So as your gifts awaken, you go through what I've found is you go through these 4 levels to really come into a place where you can actually trust what you're seeing. And it has to be repeatable. It's like applying sort of a spiritual science perspective to what's happening to you. So you can dissect it and break it down into like ways in which you can still stay grounded and be responsible for your life and not just like fly up in the clouds.
Sure. In your opinion, what is the best way to stay grounded?
I teach people a grounding exercise and how they can work with their energetic bodies. So what I found in my vision awakening is that we're much more than our human form. We have these energy bodies that expand around our physical body. And our energy body is actually informing our physical body. So if we have, traumas and things that happen to us as a child or shame, it lives in the energetic body. And if it's not healed or dealt with, it kind of creeps through the energetic bodies, the like layers of energy around your physical form, and it enters into the body as disease. So first we need to address, past traumas and things that have happened and really go back in time and clear the energy, forgive the people that harmed you, and come to a place of balance and understanding, like why bad things maybe happened to you, or to clear the victim consciousness. And from there, you can start to really ground who you are, what you're here to bring forward, and like what is your truth. Until that happens, it's a wobbly ride.
Does everyone have this awakening, or is it only certain people that have something that triggers this special awakening?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that not everybody has it. I don't think it's for everyone, but I do think many of us right now, especially, are here to be a part of what has been termed by like Joanna Macy as the Great Turning. Sort of the changing of the ages, or the dawn of the Satya Yuga in the Vedic tradition. I think many of us have come to bring forth solutions at this time to kind of heal humanity of its ills or illnesses, things that didn't work out so well. And I think many people are realizing that they're much more than they were taught that they were. It's not just about the family you were born into, or the degrees that you have, or the skills that you have, but there's actually, an essence that you carry and something very like an innate genius that I think everybody has. And I think that it's often a trigger event that awakens this. I think some people have had it awakened from childhood, and other people, they need like a near-death experience or a debilitating disease, or often people find it through partaking in psychedelics or something, like, or spiritual seeking, like doing a lot of meditation can make it happen. So yeah, I think definitely difficulty and hardships, a divorce, a breakup, a death of a loved one can all be trigger events.
Over the years of doing what you do, have you come to some sort of conclusion as to what the purpose of life is?
Well, I mean, for myself, yes. And do I think it's the absolute truth? No, it just helps me keep going and not fall into like some dark depression, because I think right now, so many people have lost hope, or they're wondering, like, they're sick of the grind. They're sick of just hustling all the time. They're burnt out, stressed out, in unhappy relationships and things like that. And I think in order for us to really find true happiness or a state of bliss and create and cultivate love in our lives, we need to find a purpose for our life, like what helps us get out of bed in the morning and gives us a drive. And for me, that's, how to be of service to the greater good. Like, if you're not part of the solution, then I think you're part of the problem. So what are you going to do? Like, in which way are you going to uniquely serve? And that's what I help people discover.
But isn't it better for people to discover this on their own?
They have to do it on their own. It takes work. I just give them the tools and the guidance. And as a seer, I can help guide them into their own practice, and then help them confirm. It helps ground them so they don't feel like they're crazy when they're seeing things. Meditation has become sort of a widespread practice, right? But people don't really talk about what happens when you meditate, or when you actually find meditative states of mind. You're opening all kinds of portals to other dimensions. And there's not a lot of teachers who talk about what to do with that information. And that's where I come in and help people like navigate what's happening to them in their, meditative states or in their dream states. So like how to manage or just even track their own experiences. So it's just tools and practices, but they will see it for themselves.
You called yourself a seer. How would you define that?
I define a seer as someone who can see the space between the physical reality. So, if we were standing face to face, I would see your body, but then I would also be able to see a lot of different things in what most people say is invisible space. It's actually full of information. So, personally, I see what I would consider the morphogenetic fields, and a lot of different things at different times. It depends on what state of mind I'm in. If I'm in a deep meditative state, I see a lot. In my waking, talking state, it's more shadow stuff that I see, like hidden motives, different thought processes. It's fascinating.
All right, Amelia, please stand by. We've got to Amelia, we've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Exonation, if you'd like to get more information about Amelia, visit her website, knowtheself.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this news as we continue right here in the X Zone from our Broadcast Center studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
If I said I didn't have the blues, in the corner there's a couple dancing. From the kitchen I can hear them laughing. Oh, I wish I was celebrating too. I know there's not.
Welcome back, everyone. Don't forget the X Zone TV channel is available exclusively on Simul TV, and that's at www.simultv.com. And for all the latest programming information on the X Zone Broadcast Network and the great programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 with our compliments, visit www.xzbn.net. We're talking about spirituality. Tonight we're talking about, ghost, paranormal experiences, what the meaning of life is. And of course, all the month of October, here is Halloween month. So to each and every one of you, happy Halloween. Amelía is our special guest. Her website is knowtheself.com. And based on your experience and your abilities to see beyond this realm, what happens to us when we die?
Yeah, well, I can explain what I've noticed from my own past life regressions and past life recall,
Okay.
where I've experienced death and then saw what was on the other side. And then when I communicate with deceased people, they explain to me. Do I know what's true? I don't know. I think always it feels so surreal and very classical, but there is, I have experienced for myself hundreds of times, if not thousands actually, in all my sessions I've done for other people, that there is a transcendence of the soul. You know, when my father died, I saw his soul actually leave out the back of his head.
Oh, wow.
Like a jellyfish.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really strange phenomena. That's actually the moment that my vision opened. But I saw his soul, like he was taking his last breaths, and then suddenly this sort of jellyfish-like shimmery thing came out the back of his head and started moving up to the sky. And then it sort of turned and morphed, and these three golden packages fell down from the sky into me, which was strange. So I guess it was like a inheritance, a spiritual inheritance of sorts. But what I've found in the in-between lives state, like people have a choice. They're often greeted. It really depends on the way someone dies, honestly. Like there's different ways. You know, if somebody committed suicide, it's going to be very different than if someone was killed in an accident and their shock and trauma. Often that's what leads to people hanging out in the astral realms as ghosts or poltergeist type energies. But someone who has a peaceful death or a conscious death and knows they're dying and transcends is often greeted by someone that they know or a spiritual guide, depending on their belief set. Mm-hmm. And they're escorted and they're explained, you know, like you've passed away and this is where you're going. And it really depends on the level of the soul. You know, if it's a ascended soul, it's going to return back to its original home in the star system, where they get to sort of recalibrate all the lessons that they've gathered, and they review the life, see if they've fulfilled the mission, their soul mission in this lifetime. Most people come to Earth as a volunteer or here to learn specific karmic lessons or things that will help them back in wherever they came from. But there's so many different variations of that, but the similarities are that you're often greeted by someone that loves you, or that's guiding you into the next phase. And there is like kind of what I would call like a purgatory state. A lot of souls rest in for a while, which is they're able to choose like which age was the most like the highest life, the high point of their life. For example, my dad chose to be 33 and my grandmother chose to be in her 20s. And it was so strange when I first interacted with my deceased ancestors because they were all different ages. not at all the age when they died. And I was wondering why. And I asked them, and they said, oh, we get to select what age we are. And they were living in a parallel Earth that looked very much like Earth, but less people, more fecund. Like there was a lot of greenery. It looked just like San Francisco Bay Area, but without the people and the pollution in the buildings. And they were chosen a profession. But I later found out that this was just a temporary place for the soul to rest and recover and really understand that they have passed on. And then I was guided to help them move to other levels. So there's many, many stations in the dimensional realms, places that we go to, and our soul continues to journey. It's quite fascinating. I don't know if we'll ever know exactly what happens until it's our turn, but I think through meditation, through near-death experiences or past life regression work, whether it's spontaneous or you go to a regressionist, you get that experience for yourself. So it's quite fascinating.
You know, the passing of your dad that you shared with us, the jellyfish entity that exited his body, I find that rather unique because I've never heard that before. So when you see, would you say that the jellyfish was the essence of your father, was actually the spirit that you were witnessing escaping the body?
That's what it seemed like. Yeah, and it was so strange. And I was in the room with maybe 6 other family members, and we were all standing around his hospital bed, and I jumped on his legs when I saw it leaving because it was so weird, and I was trying to like hold it in the body for something. Like it was just an instinctual response. Later I was thinking, why did I do that? But I literally jumped up onto his feet to like hold it in the body, and then I watched it leave, and everybody else was, looking down and crying, and I was in this state of awe and wonder and kind of ecstatic bliss, which felt so strange for me because I thought I should be screaming and wailing and crying. I just lost my dad, but the magic of it, the strange, I don't know, phenomena of it was so beyond what I would have ever, I don't know. It was the first time I ever saw someone pass. So I was wondering, did everybody else see that? And, nobody wanted to talk about that at the moment. They were grieving.
Has anyone?
But I stayed in that state of, ecstatic sort of sensation, and my eyes from that moment on were totally different. Then I started to see in between all the time, and it wouldn't turn off. For many years I couldn't get it to turn off. It was like too much information.
So have you had the experience of communicating with your dad since his passing?
Yeah, for about 9 months after he passed, he was harassing me pretty much all the time, talking to me nonstop. He died unexpectedly with a lot of unfinished business, without a will and things like that. And he wanted me to communicate on his behalf. And there was no way I was going to do that because, already my family doesn't believe in such things. But it turned out that a lot of people were having dreams. And he would say, ask his sister, my aunt, he would say, ask her about the dream she had last night, tell her it's real, and that I purposefully told her that. So I would say, okay, I'm having these experiences, and he's talking to me all the time, and he told me this, and she just broke down in tears, and she said, oh, how do you know that? Yes, he came to me in a dream. And then she confirmed he was very young and handsome, like he was, in his 30s. And I said, that's how he's appearing to me. And then another woman who was a friend of his, I didn't know her, she reached out to me and said, I'm having dreams of your father. He's wearing this particular, suit and tie, and it's exactly how I was seeing him. So that confirmed. There were many confirmations that came. He would also tell, like when I was driving, I was driving in a neighborhood where he grew up, and I didn't know the streets. And I was about to look up a map on my phone, and he said, "No, I'm going to tell you how to get there. Trust me." So he would tell me, turn right, turn left, go straight. And sure enough, I got exactly where I needed to go. So that was fun. So it was fun, but it was also really scary at times.
Has that been the most pivotal paranormal experience that you've had?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of paranormal experience in my life, like pretty much nonstop since I was a child. But when he died and the 2 years that followed his death, it really changed my life. Yeah, it changed everything about my life. I ended up leaving technology and software. I was a software consultant and moving to India, seeking and searching for yogis and mystics and other seers to help me navigate, because it wouldn't turn off. The senses were so strong, and I really needed to understand what was happening to me. And I really just wanted them to stop, but I couldn't work. Money made no sense to me anymore. So I just gave away everything that I owned. I didn't want any ties to the material realm. And I was wondering, like, am I supposed to be some, yogi in the forest? But I didn't like people touching me. Even shaking hands was overwhelming for me, because I would see all their deceased loved ones, and they were all, wanting to leave messages through me. And I learned that that's not okay, because people would start crying whatever I said, and that wasn't the impression I wanted to give people. I didn't want to shake them up. So I had to tune myself, and I moved deep into nature and just meditated almost 8 hours a day just to learn, like, what is this teaching me? Where is this taking me? So I ended up living in India for 8 years.
Did you find the answers to the questions you were seeking?
I found a lot more questions. I think what happens on the spiritual path is, you open doors of perception, and you start to make sense of them and ground them out, and then the next level comes, So for me, I'm always in a state of learning and, returning to that student mind again and again. I don't think there's, like, we arrive at one absolute truth, or the moment that we do, something else comes and, the cycle starts again, or the next level. But I do feel that I've gained a tremendous amount of experience and learned how to interact with, life forms and sentience that was, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have even believed existed. And now it's quite common for me. So I think your body has to acclimate and recalibrate to each experience. If you come face to face with a ghost or an extraterrestrial, the nervous system flips out, the mind flips out. Like, a lot of things don't compute.
All right, stand by. We've got to take our final break for this hour. And if you'd like more information, Exo Nation, visit www.knowtheself.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We're coming to you from our broadcast centers in Niagara, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and Mutual Broadcast Network. Don't go away.
It's the right time of the night. The stars are winking above. It's the right time of the night. Making love. No use talking when the shadows fall. Night birds calling and he said.
And welcome back, everyone. If you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, Amelía, visit her website at knowtheself.com. Before we went to the last break, you mentioned aliens or extraterrestrials. Do you also have interactions with them?
I have, yeah, quite a few.
Why do you think that you're able to have all these different connections and experiences with all of these different entities from different realms, different dimensions? Why you?
Well, I don't think it's only me. I think that partially my upbringing, I was raised by a very fanatic born-again Christian. So inside the faith, as a child, I had a strong faith in God, and I prayed a lot as a kid. And I was asking questions to the sky. I was constantly asking for proof. And I was also severely neglected by my family. And we lived butting up to some Ohlone land and a hill and a sacred peak of the Ohlone Indians. So, there's a lot of fighting and stuff going on in my household with my older siblings and my mother. So I would often just roam the woods alone and pray and talk to God, and all sorts of things would happen. And so I think that through my ability to be alone and quiet and deep in nature. And I had a deep sense of peace and connection. And I was always asking to see the truth. I want to see the truth. I also had a lot of disappointments from authoritarian figures that I, expected to live in a certain level of integrity, and they disappointed me, including my family members and people who were supposed to keep me safe. So I prayed a lot for divine intervention. And I think that's really all it takes is like someone who really wants to see, someone who asks, and has a clear intention. They're going to start to have experiences and see things. It's not that, only I can see them, but I think it's also a part of my unique mission here, which is to really guide people to understand that they're more than their human form. We have a divinity inside us. And, I never really wanted to share my paranormal experiences, maybe to a friend or two, or to entertain someone, here and there. But really, they're so personal, and it brings you into awe and wonder and a connection to the divine that is unique. People who have a strong faith in God, how can they prove it? I mean, I don't know. They pray and they feel a presence, or they have dreams and experiences, or they feel a loving presence and connection and guidance. So for me, it was that. Not always loving, mind you. I had a lot of experiences with darker entities, darker beings. So they were my teachers. Maybe because I wasn't so parented or conditioned in the sense that I was alone a lot as a child, and just really seeking.
Seeking what?
Connection, like where, I don't know, I was fascinated, kind of obsessed with staring at the stars all night. Like I wouldn't go to sleep unless I could see the stars, and I would talk to the stars, and I was constantly memorizing the Bible. So it was like this sense of, I have the faith to move mountains. And so I would say, my faith is so strong, show me something. And that's when I saw my first UFOs. But I didn't know what I was looking at. I was like 6 years old, and the stars would dance, and I would find it fun. And I didn't know if anyone else can see it. And then my sister, my best friend, would sleep with me, and I would show them that I could do this and communicate. And they were always, in awe and wonder. And it just continued with me my whole life. So I just always felt like I had friends in the stars, and they've been there to guide me. They're not all friendly, mind you. And it has been an interesting experience, but I don't think I'm the only one. I think I want to remember. I know I have a lot of lost memory as well, things that have been very traumatizing that are hard to kind of recall and bring back. But
It seems that
yeah,
it seems that your religious upbringing has certainly had a significant role in your life. But doesn't your religious teachings kind of say that what you're saying and what you're seeing is part of the negative factor of life?
I don't follow what you mean.
Okay. You believe in God?
I believe that we are all from a divine source. So I don't
Okay.
believe the Christian beliefs anymore, if that's what you're asking.
It is. So what turned you off the Christian beliefs?
The hypocrisy, the lies, the conditioning, the control, as a kid, I would ask questions that they couldn't answer. And instead of saying, I don't know the answer to that, they would, demand me to stop asking the questions or termed me disruptive. So I really went against the church I left the church at 16. And then
Wow.
I started seeking outside and reading ancient texts. I wanted to understand divinity, like what is the truth? Why all these countries are fighting religious wars, and what do the Jews think? What do the Muslims think? What is this Hindu religion and many gods? So I just started to do a lot of self-study, and through my work with, I worked in technology very young. So I got to work with some of the most genius people on the planet and some very powerful men also. And I started to see there's something going on here that religion can't answer, that science can't answer. And I just started to tap into that really and just keep asking questions. And I'd like to say to all those who are listening who've had some sort of paranormal experience and they feel scared to talk about it, or they're not sure what's happening to them, or they feel cursed, like to really reach out. That you can find me on my website, but to find someone who can help you really grounded. You're not alone, even though it's a very lonely experience. But I think a lot of people are persecuted and kind of shunned by their families and friends if they are having experiences or they're heavily medicated.
The name of your book is very interesting. Synchronicity, Unlock Your Divine Destiny. How does synchronicity fall into the divine destiny?
Yeah, I think there's we talked about the timing, or like something happening in your life to sort of trigger these events. I think synchronicity is one of those things, like for people who are experiencing a lot of synchronicity, that's normally the calling card that you're waking up to some innate genius, to some sort of unique gift that you have. It could be like an invention that you're going to bring forward. It could be that you're just tapping into your inner creativity and some unique self-expression. And I think people need to follow that and understand it. It can also make people feel crazy, and they get into this like over meaning thing. So we need to stay grounded about it. But I suggest, people writing it down, tracking it, checking references, and understand like who's guiding you. I would say that your own soul is guiding you towards, golden doorways that are opening for you to follow. So it requires releasing a lot of the prior conditioning, whether that was religious conditioning, governmental, community, familial, or just negative belief patterns that you have. You have to release a lot of that in order to hear the call of your soul.
Is it the calling of the soul, or is it the desire to understand and live in harmony with something that goes against your grain and your beliefs?
Well, I believe that we're here to really embody our capacity, like to really awaken the human potential. I think there's so much more than, we're not here to just be slaves to a corporate system.
I don't believe
to
we
work
are.
for other people's agenda, right?
You see, I don't believe
most
that. I don't
people feel
believe.
like that.
I don't believe that's the truth. I really think that anybody who believes that we're the slaves to the corporate entities or to the government are people who just have a problem facing the reality of life.
Yeah, well, I think people feel conditioned, like if they're living into the expectations of their family. For example, like you need to be a doctor and do this, but maybe their soul came here to be a, I don't know, a musician and a poet or something like that, right? They're fighting their nature. So what I'm talking about is people just honoring their authentic self. And I think we would live in a much more dynamic and loving place, a more creative place. I think we're opening to like a new renaissance right now, where if everybody were here really understanding who they were and what their frequency brought to the table, what their unique voice brought to the table, we would have so much more solutions and more happiness and joy and love to share than people just like getting up, popping, antidepressants and going to work to pay their rent and slogging away. A lot of people live like that, unfortunately. So I think when they're feeling like what more is, when they're asking why am I here? What's more to life? How do I find my happiness? And then allowing and taking the time to be in nature.
But listen, if you don't pay your rent, you're going to find yourself on the street. So what do you do?
Absolutely.
Find yourself on the street and start singing Kumbaya?
No way. Well, that would be completely irresponsible. Yeah, I feel you. I think that's the other extreme of the pendulum, right? And unfortunately, that's what people do because they get so burnt out that they can't do it anymore, and they just unsubscribe and go in the other dramatic direction. I think we need to find a balance point, and I wish there was more. I see now people that are teaching meditation in school. I'm really a proponent of that, like helping young people or people that are stepping into the workforce, like who are they? What are they uniquely bringing, and kind of bringing in that entrepreneurial spirit and finding like how does their voice or their unique style or their unique expression add to government systems, education systems, banking. My students come from all walks of life, all vocations. I have people in the oil and gas industry or working in satellites or bankers, financiers, and healers.
Well, I want to thank you so much. We've run out of time for tonight. But Exo Nation, if you'd like to get more information on our guest tonight, visit her website. And the website is knowtheself.com. Personally, I wouldn't waste my time. I think it's a lot of la, 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 la. I can't face responsibility. I can't face reality. So I'm just going to see aliens, visit with the ghosts, and watch the stars dance. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X Zone continues. Hopefully not following the stars, ghosts, or aliens right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Don't go away.